Hello, it's Cryptocritic. Today, I want to talk about why I choose AVA and why I think that it is the future of money and of finance and why I'm here instead of some other cryptocurrency and why I'm focusing my time here. So first, I'll go through their website, and then I'm going to go to my notes here where I have written down the things, my thoughts on AVA and stuff. So the beginning here, it says, build the Internet of Finance. AVA describes itself as an open source platform for launching highly decentralized applications, new financial primitives, and new interoperable blockchains. It is the Internet of reactive dApps. AVA democratizes financial markets and bridges all blockchain platforms together into one interoperable ecosystem. You can build your own custom blockchains or digitize any assets with arbitrarily complex rule sets. What you can do: launch customized blockchains, private and public, create and trade digital assets, build scalable smart contracts and dApps. It has high performance, it's scalable and secure, flexible and customizable, and lots of developer tools. So here is why I choose AVA. The fundamental value proposition of AVA. Preface. The overall purpose of cryptocurrency is to take power out of money, making it fairer, worth its value, and less manipulable. Governments and banks having too much power over money leads to corrupt monetary policy, currency devaluation, and sometimes even hyperinflation. A global ledger that could take power out of money would make the world a better place. However, to get there, we need to satisfy three requirements. The three requirements of a distributed global monetary system. 1. It must be a hard money. If this distributed global money system is not hard money and lacks properties of scarcity, immutability, usability, portability, durability, and/or fungibility, then it will not be a desirable currency for people to switch to. And even if it were, the overall purpose of that money system would be jeopardized by the lack of hardness needed to take power out of the money. So if it's not hard money, then what's the point? And some people might not even want to adopt it for that reason. It must be a scalable system. Even if you have the hardest money in the world, you can't replace the world's money if your money system is fundamentally or technically incapable of scaling to that level. In many cryptocurrency schemes, a cryptocurrency scaling beyond its capacity affects its hardness of money, such as Bitcoin, where the fees get too high, such as its usability or even its level of decentralization. You cannot compete with a traditional monetary system if you cannot scale up to the traditional monetary system. So, for example, if you want to compete with the US dollar, you have to be able to scale as high as the US dollar. Although that's Bitcoin's stated goal, it's not able to actually achieve it. And that's why scalability is important. 3. It must have a surplus of well-demanded secondary use cases. This is the one thing that a lot of people forget or don't completely understand. Even if you have the hardest money in the world, and even if it could scale to the whole world, there would be no way to get to global adoption without forcing economic participants to be altruists and use the money system at their own economic disadvantage. We see this in Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, and even nano communities. People pay a fee to buy a cryptocurrency just to sell it at a few exclusive locations at their own economic loss. And they get stuck wondering why nobody is adopting it like them. We need secondary use cases captured by this distributed global monetary system. Not just any use cases, but highly demanded ones. People need to be incentivized to buy, own, and use cryptocurrency outside of things they can already do very easily or for cheaper. That's a very important step. And if you don't have that, then there's not going to be a bootstrapping phase for your cryptocurrency, and it's not going to reach adoption. So why AVA? AVA is a cryptocurrency to be launched 2020, next month, based on the 2018 white paper by the anonymous developers Team Rocket, called From Snowflake to Avalanche. The purpose of Team Rocket was to redesign the concept of the blockchain in such a way that bridges the advantages of classical and Nakamoto consensus in order to achieve a better kind of scalable, lightweight, and efficient network architecture. The purpose of the AVA token, talking about secondary use cases here, is to provide an easy-to-use and highly scalable platform for businesses, nation-states, and organizations to tokenize assets, launch complex smart contracts, and build entirely new cryptocurrencies on AVA. AVA's C-chain is cross-compatible with Ethereum smart contracts out of the box, and is potentially cross-compatible with dApps from any cryptocurrency ecosystem, due to AVA's inherent ability to exist on multiple blockchains as a single token. AVA's X-chain is cross-compatible with the Bitcoin UTXO model, and AVA's P-chain allows for the creation of new blockchains and subnets on top of AVA. AVA might not just be the future of money, but it may be the future of platforms and even socio-economic and political governance. Governments and corporations can launch validator subnets on AVA, each subnet controlling its own blockchain. These subnets could potentially be infrastructure for fair and distributed policymaking, voting, and shareholder meetings. Bitcoin was the first contender for a distributed global monetary system. However, it remains unable to scale and provide new useful use cases. But if it remains unable to scale and provide new useful use cases, then it will be unable to fulfill its role. AVA seeks to compete with such a role, not necessarily on the peer-to-peer electronic cash front, at least not at first. However, it is designed to be able to completely capture that niche. What properties of AVA make it a good money system? Scarcity. AVA has a max supply cap of 720 million coins, with a genesis balance of half of that well distributed over its community participants and the people building infrastructure. This is similar to Bitcoin's level of scarcity, not talking about the number of coins, but the rate at which new ones are created, which is what matters. This is similar to its level of scarcity. However, it is even more scarce than Bitcoin because on AVA, all fees are burned instead of recirculated. Whenever fees are recirculated, that's like a micro-inflation in the Bitcoin economy that causes downward selling pressure on Bitcoin. On AVA, since they're all burned, that's actually value going back into the pocket of AVA holders. The amount of AVA needed for a fee, as well as the temporary emission rate, so anything below the max supply cap, of rewards is decided by the validators through them voting with their stake. The rate at which things can be changed is limited in order to sustain predictability, so it can't go from 0 to 100 overnight. There's like time windows where they're able to vote for different things, and they can only change it so much at a time, and that's just so it's more predictable for people, because we don't want an unpredictable economic system. 2. It captures value from dApps. Because fees are burned on AVA, dApps and services that use AVA and therefore makes many transactions with many fees burn potentially large amounts of AVA, increasing the value of everyone's AVA. These dApps and services are profitable by definition, otherwise they wouldn't be running for very long. Just economics 101. So the value going to people holding AVA is not forcibly extracted, nor done to anyone's economic disadvantage. Services are better off making their revenue with only a small amount going to AVA holders than they would be if there was no fee and attackers could spam the chain out of its usability. The AVA holder profit model is in stark contrast to other systems like Ethereum, where Ethereum doesn't really have a way to capture value directly from its apps. The only real utility Ethereum is offering here is like, you gotta have Ethereum to make transactions, so it has some level of value, but if a dApp gets popular and everyone's using it, that doesn't necessarily bring the value of Ethereum up that much, aside from what people need to buy in order to have it. The value of something like Ethereum is largely speculative in nature, and really the inherent value, I guess, is coming from people that need that Ethereum to run applications. It's way less of a value recirculation system than AVA, where people that run these applications actually cause AVA holders to increase in wealth. So the more AVA apps that are running and using AVA, the higher the price of AVA will get. Just all else equal, even if these apps aren't onboarding new users, by the simple fact that they're burning the fees, everyone's AVA becomes worth more. So that's a new economic model here that'll make it easier for AVA to capture value from its apps. It's highly distributed. On AVA, anyone with a minimum coin balance can run a node and stake whatever holdings they have. The current minimum staking amount is very small, allowing thousands or tens of thousands of people to participate in the consensus process. There are not any hard limits on how many people can stake aside from the minimum staking amount. Adding additional nodes to the system also does not decrease the scalability of the system very much, unlike other distributed schemes. 4. Easy to use. Some cryptocurrencies get excited about features, but then forget to make their platforms easy to use. For example, EOS is a cryptocurrency that was launched with the promise of free and instant transactions, but has got to a point where someone must stake tens to hundreds of EOS just to send any. With AVA, you don't need to stake anything to use AVA, you just use it immediately, and the person receives it immediately. Fees on AVA are low, unlike on Ethereum, which frequently sees fees upward of 10 cents per transaction. AVA also has the capability to perform free transactions too, if it's integrated into the protocol, which has been talked about to be put on the roadmap, but isn't necessarily on the roadmap right this second. And the way that would work is you have to fill out a hash puzzle, like you do a hash puzzle, and then that's the spam resistance layer that you can use instead of a fee. And for example, in order to keep the fee burning model, you could just maybe do one or a few of these types of free transactions a day or whatever. And that would be one way to integrate free transactions on AVA. It has been talked about, but it's not implemented yet. But either way, even really small fees that are reliably small is way better than fees that are upward of 10 cents. And I think that's a good model in my opinion. So 5, the most programmable cryptocurrency. AVA is cross-compatible with other cryptocurrencies and is built with a high level of programmability. Because AVA is the most programmable cryptocurrency, at least that I know of, it has the greatest potential for secondary use cases. Secondary use cases require the programmability of the distributed ledger in order to use the distributed ledger in other ways that people find useful, such as coin mixing for private transactions, decentralized financial services, on-chain metadata storage, etc. And because AVA has infrastructure funding from the start, it has the chance to prosper into a highly diverse ecosystem of apps and services. My final thoughts. Since I don't really think any other cryptocurrency has the capacity to fully scale for the world, and many of them lack essential aspects such as money hardness, usability, or programmability, I am optimistic about AVA's hardness and of money and utility as well. My overall goal is for peer-to-peer cash, peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world to fulfill the original mission of Bitcoin and give us a better money system. And Bitcoin has failed to live up to that. I think AVA has the best chance at helping with this. So as for other cryptocurrencies, we all know Bitcoin can't really scale, at least not how it's doing. People aren't using the Lightning Network, and Bitcoin transactions, you can't have more than 1 megabyte of transactions in a block. So Bitcoin is struggling to scale, and it might not ever be able to, I don't know. Ethereum is also struggling to scale, and they're actually scrapping their whole blockchain for a new blockchain called Ethereum 2.0. It's a highly experimental blockchain with lots of sharding and lots of this and that, and they're moving to proof of stake. And I mean, who knows how that's going to go? But right now, Ethereum isn't really able to scale that well, and people are paying like 1 cent, 5 cent, 10-cent transaction fees, and that's not good if you're making an application like a smart contract that runs lots of transactions. It would get way too expensive to use that, and that would deteriorate the usefulness of something like Ethereum. Ethereum's also inflationary, so it's not that hard of a money. It might be, I mean, you can argue gold is somewhat inflationary too, because we mine new gold all the time. But why have any inflation at all if that's something that's able to be changed and it's kind of like a slippery slope, right? We don't want any slippery slopes in our monetary system. We want to steel man it the best we can. So Ethereum has a few problems. Bitcoin obviously has its problems. Bitcoin Cash is the next one that I would look at. Bitcoin Cash is trying to scale and it has cheap transactions. The problem is it's not quite as programmable as Ethereum, and they're lacking that funding to get their blockchain there. Also, there's not really any evidence that it's able to scale past the 22 megabytes that it's been able to stress test itself to, or maybe past the theoretical limits that for example, its competitor Bitcoin SV has scaled to. Its Bitcoin SV is scaled to, something between 100 and 200 megabyte blocks, I think. And it may be at the depreciation of nodes being able to run on the network, or at miner centralization or whatever. But they've been able to get to that, and I've not seen them get much farther. So I don't really see evidence that Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, or any version of Bitcoin is necessarily able to scale to a global adoption level. As for AVA, I mean, it kind of is. I did the math the other day, and I don't have it right here in front of me, but with how scalable AVA is right now, without doing any more enhancements, without stronger computers, just all the validators are just using home laptops and stuff, AVA is actually able to scale to between 1 and 10% of the entire global population if everyone uses it once a day. That's pretty good. And we might not be at 100% yet. However, we're close enough, within 1 or 2 orders of magnitude, that, hey, implement a simple sharding protocol, put multiple chains on AVA and use those multiple chains. People get stronger computers, technology advances. If just one of those 4 things happen, we can get to global adoption, or we can scale to global adoption. And AVA is so close with its ability to scale that I am extremely confident in it, unlike most of these other cryptocurrencies. So those are my thoughts on AVA and why I think it's got a really good fundamental value proposition. I see a lack of good competitors to AVA. If I were to tell someone where to hedge their money, I think Ethereum is a good hedge because it's not fighting for that Bitcoin name, because all the three chains fighting for the Bitcoin name, they're kind of mutually exclusive in a way. So if you really want to be like distributed, like uh, if you want to hedge your bets, you'd have to like buy all three of them or maybe two of the three, and that's just not convenient for people, right? So I think Ethereum, since it moves with the market with Bitcoin and stuff, even if Bitcoin were to be overtaken by like Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV, I still feel like Ethereum would have its strong holding in the market and would move with the market either way. So I would maybe tell someone that would be a decent hedge, although at the same time, I don't necessarily think it's a decent plan for replacing, for creating a distributed global monetary system and replacing fiat or anything like that. Um, so this is why I'm in AVA. I don't just feel like it's the best choice. I feel like in some ways it might be the only choice at this point. And well, those are my thoughts. Thank you for listening. Feel free to like and subscribe and share my video.